Hi, this is Steve. Welcome to the Hard Times Cafe. It's the night before Thanksgiving 2011, and so in the spirit of the holidays, we're going to make a pumpkin pie. Over here, we've got the ingredients already ready to mix together here. What you're going to need, you're going to need a 9-inch pie shell, deep dish pie shell. You can get either prepared or unprepared. The cooking time may vary depending on whether or not these are pre-cooked or not. This one is the dough, so this is going to have to cook. Now, we've got a half a teaspoon of salt right here. We've got a whole teaspoon of ground cinnamon, and we've got a 1/4 teaspoon each of ground ginger, ground cloves, and ground nutmeg. Now, if you don't have nutmeg in your cabinet, or ground cloves, or ginger in any of the things, if you have pumpkin spice, you can use a teaspoon and a half of pumpkin pie spice rather, to replace these ingredients, except for the salt. So if you don't have and if you use the pumpkin pie spice, you don't want to add the cinnamon because it's already got cinnamon in it. Just use a teaspoon and a half of this, and it'll replace it. The flavor's not going to be the same though. You're going to need 3 eggs. And you're going to need a cup of sugar, and you're going to need a cup of evaporated milk. You're going to need 1 can of pumpkin, whichever variety you choose. We're using festal pumpkin here. And so what you're going to do is combine the eggs. You're going to take the eggs and your spice mixes here and your sugar. We're going to mix in our sugar and our spices. And we're going to blend this together. Now, if you don't have a blender, general rule of thumb, if you don't have a blender, there's about 50 to 100 strokes with a fork. You can get the, usually about the same thing you get with a blender. We're just mixing this up here. So again, we've got a 1/4 teaspoon each of ground cloves, ground ginger, ground nutmeg. We've got a whole teaspoon of cinnamon, a half a teaspoon of salt, and we've got a cup of sugar and 3 eggs in this mix. We're getting ready. We're going to add the milk and the pumpkin last. We'll add the milk very last because sometimes the consistency may vary depending on the pumpkin mix, but a cup of milk should be about right. You can use evaporated milk, powdered milk. I've seen some recipes that produce a pumpkin pie in about 20 minutes. Again, the pie crust will make a difference in this, but this is the recipe we're using here. Get all this out. Okay. Now I'll add milk next. Just start stirring it in. And there's a certain flavor this evaporated milk adds to things like pies and cakes and such. Anytime you're cooking some kind of sweet confection or making candies, this evaporated milk is a common ingredient. It's a Mexican date nut log or a Spanish date nut log that we'll make in another webisode, and we will. Okay, so the more I stir it, it's going to get a little thicker. I'm going to pour this into my pie shell. I've got my oven preheated to 350 degrees. Okay. Now this is a raw dough pie shell. This is an uncooked pie shell, so this is not going to cook in just 20 minutes like some of these other recipes. If it were a graham cracker shell already cooked, it might cook faster. But get your ingredients in there. Fit as much as you can. When you're starting to pour this dough out, some of these spices may have sunk to the bottom. You want to get these into the mix. And you can mix it right in the shell if you have to. If you can't fit it all in, you should be able to get it all in there. Okay. Now, we're going to take this over here to the oven. And carefully, oops, getting some spillage over the side there. That's alright. A little bit much. That's alright. I'll just wipe this off with my finger there and I'll clean up the mess with the rag in a minute. But I don't want this spilling down into my oven. So I'm going to set this pie on the center rack. Again, it's preheated to 350. Get a rag or sponge and clean this extra up a little bit there. Now, I'm going to set the timer for 40 minutes. You want to cook this about 40 to 45 minutes, but you always want to set your timer just a few minutes early so that you can check it, because oven temperatures vary and some ovens cook faster. You don't want your crust to burn. So we'll come back when this timer is done and we'll pull the pie out then and take a look at it. It's going to have a cooling time of about 2 hours on the rack or on a towel, or you can put it straight inside the refrigerator. So again, this is Steve. This is Making Pumpkin Pie at the Hard Times Cafe, our holiday special for Thanksgiving 2011. We'll see you in a few minutes. Go.
Hello, Mr. Woody. How come you look so down and out?
Because I made pumpkin pie, and once again, it turned out like crap.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Mr. Woody. You need to use Festo Golden Pie Pumpkin Mix. We use it, and our pies come out good.
Wow. I think I'll use Festo from now on.
Okay, good. Yum.
What smells like mmm? We do. Festo brand products by Seneca. Welcome back to the Hard Times Cafe. This is Steve. We're making pumpkin pie today. It's the evening before Thanksgiving. We put this in the oven before we last left and set the oven for 40 minutes. There's about 5 minutes left. So we're just going to take a peek here. You can come in here and look at this. Now, when you can stick a knife in the center, pull it out clean. See, this isn't clean. Then it's done. And my pie crust is starting to get brown around the edge. So we're just going to leave it in there. It's got 5 more minutes. Honestly, I'm going to give it about 10, make it 45. So I'm going to add to the timer because it was originally set for 40 minutes. It's been 35. We're going to add another 5 minutes. And then we'll come back and check it at that time frame and see how it's doing. Hard Times Cafe. It's November 23rd, 2011. It's the evening before Thanksgiving, and we're making pumpkin pie today. I followed the recipe on a can of pumpkin here. There's different recipes out there. I spoke about at the beginning of the video. Some of these recipes I've seen can produce a pumpkin pie in as little as 20 minutes from start to finish. Of course, you'll need a graham cracker crust or a pie crust that's pretty much already cooked at that point. We used a raw pie crust, 9-inch deep dish pie crust, and we cooked this for a total of 50 minutes. Now, you can see my crust here. It's not burnt. It's brown. That's not black. That's just brown. It's got a nice color around here, but it was starting to get dark on the edges. Some of this was actually the pumpkin is what you're seeing that is spilled over when I was putting it in. It's cooked around those edges. Ideally, you want to be able to stick the knife in the center and pull it out clean. Now, this isn't totally clean, but it's not bad. It just means my filling's going to be a little loose whenever I take it out of the pie pan and put it on the plate. But I didn't want to cook it any longer than 50 minutes because I didn't want to burn the pie crust. And so what I did was I let it sit. I just cut off the heat and I let it sit in the oven an additional half hour and just let the heat kind of cook it a little more in there. And that's not a bad looking pie. That is, it's firm enough, it holds. But now, because it's soft, I know because the knife's not coming out clean, it's going to be a little soft in the plate. So what we're going to do is on this one, normally we would end the webisode here. I'm going to put this in the refrigerator. It needs about 2 hours to cool down total. You can do this by setting it on a cooling rack, or you can set it on a towel and let it cool. And because we have dogs, I'm going to be putting this in the refrigerator so we don't have paw prints in it when we come back. And whenever we go to cut it, we'll actually show you how the consistency of this holds up once it's actually cut. And this is using the recipe on the Festal pumpkin pie can, using Festal pumpkin, the golden pie pumpkin. This was the actual product we used, and we used we just went by the recipe right on the label. I made pumpkin pie here a couple of weeks ago though, and it was done start to finish in 20 minutes. We used a graham cracker crust, and the recipe on the pan, on the can of that particular brand of pumpkin, called for it to stay in the oven for a total of 20 minutes. Now, so here's our pie. We'll be back in just a few minutes, and this has been Steve at Hard Times Cafe. And we'll close this segment out, if not tonight, in the morning. And we'll show you the consistency of it then. And happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Okay, our pie is chilled in the refrigerator for 2 hours, and again, it's held together nice. It's got a good consistency to it. So, you see when we pulled it out of the oven, we stuck the knife into the center. We still got some of the pumpkin still came out on the knife. It was still soft in there, but after the refrigerator, it's set up really nicely. And this looks like some good stuff. Pumpkin happens to be my favorite pie. That's good stuff. I'm Steve. This is Hard Times Cafe. Go out and make you some pumpkin pie and enjoy. Happy holidays.